it always feels privileged to be introduced by your boss. It's always difficult to speak after Catherine. Catherine is normally very interesting and thorough and chaotic. I've listened to them before. So, as my boss said, I will take you through the legal and institutional framework for state operations, mainly centering on the State Operations Act, Cap 446 of the laws of Kenya, but also I will venture out to, of course, tell you, not just restricting myself to the State Operations Act, but also looking at other relevant acts that you need to pay heed as board of a state operation. And I know from the morning you've been reminded that you are at the helm. You are at the helm. And indeed, it is so, as you will see from the State Operations Act. So that's an outline of my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I know part of the presentation has been dealt with, so that is always an advantage because I'll be able to move very fast. So just in terms of background, of course, currently we use the term, almost exclusively use the term state operations to refer to government-owned organizations or public-owned organizations. A few years ago, I know that the term parastatals used to be very ascendant, especially during the reign of the Daniel Arab Moi, but with time, we've replaced it in our vocabulary with state corporations. In other jurisdictions, you will hear of crown corporations in some, especially the Commonwealth. You might hear of public enterprises in other jurisdictions that don't belong to the Commonwealth and so forth. But of course, the idea is that there are enterprises that are not privately owned. Of course, that's the distinguishing characteristic. By definition, what is a state corporation? Number one, it has to be that it's a body corporate. Body corporate status is very important. It has to be a legal person. And this legal person is established by or under an act of parliament. By or under an act of parliament. By an act of parliament means you have exclusive ownership of your constitutive instrument or act. What comes to mind is, for example, KPA. It's the KPA Act, the Kenya Ports Authority Act. So it's an entity that is created by an act. There's many other entities, and I know they are represented here, who may not have an exclusive act, but they are created under some act. For example, the water entities, I know, have created under the Water Act 2016. For example, there are also other entities that are created by legal notice. As you will see later, the president has power to create state operations, and he does this through a legal notice. And that power is conferred by the State Operations Act 446. So such corporations, for example, KNH, I think Kenyatta National Hospital, have been created under an act, which is the State Operations Act. Currently, there are about, now I stand corrected, I made this before consulting broadly, Chairman Skak and Madam Chair. Because when I came in, I had Skak mention 348 as the number of officially recognized state operations. I know the National Treasury, in their list, they have about 368, I think 368. So there is some fluidity about this, and I know the Prime Cabinet Secretary ordered a proper census so that we are not guessing, but we are very definite going forward. So these state operations span all sectors of the economy, and it's just important to look at, to review the rationale. Of course, when we obtained independence many years ago, the rationale was intended to be for Africanization of the economy, because the colonialism was just going out, and so we needed to develop local capacity. And this was via the public enterprises. Things like creation of employment opportunities, spurring economic growth, intervention, effective delivery of public services were very, very ascendant. But as we go along, the private sector has also come into its own, and the rationale for the existence of state corporations is evolving, ladies and gentlemen. Currently, the important thing, I think, is intervention in areas of strategic interest, implementation of large capital investments where private sector lacks capacity, or where participation is not guaranteed. And here, when I consider this, I'm very familiar with the water sector. Water is now a constitutional right. The provision of potable water to Mwananchi is now a constitutional right. And you will agree with me, when you travel across this country, there are certain regions that are so remote and so underdeveloped that if you ask the private sector to go there and establish, for example, the waterworks to supply water to those citizens, the first question would be, what is the return on investment? And indeed, the return on investment will most likely be zero. So for the government to meet its obligation, it has to do so through those water bodies that have been created by the Water Act 2016. In terms of categorization, there are currently those 8 categories, ranging from financial through commercial, strong manufacturing, the regulatory bodies, public universities, training institutions, and research institutions, service, RBS, tertiary education institutions. So those are the 8 categories that are prevailing currently, and I hope that you know where you belong. In terms of the legal framework, my boss, the Acting Inspector General, has started this off. Of course, the State Corporations Act is like an umbrella act. But as I mentioned before, there are a number of state corporations that have their exclusive enabling acts. There are also those that have been created by under some acts. And the current practice here is, and I like that, is Parliament is now creating sectoral laws. For example, the Energy Act, the Water Act, and then under those acts, they are of course creating the various bodies that the government requires to prosecute its policy within those sectors. Yeah, so there's the Energy Act that has created a number of state corporations, Water Act, and so forth. There are also state corporations that are established by legal notice. These ones are through presidential order and the powers conferred by the State Corporations Act. And there is normally a misconception that when a state corporation is created under legal notice, it's any less than those that have specific enabling instruments. Nothing is further from the truth. Before the law, they are all equal. Chairman, there used to be a claimer, and I remember I was at KNH one time, and they were clamoring to have their own enabling, their own specific enabling act. And their argument was that under legal notice status, they were very insecure because the president may just wake up one morning, if he slept on the wrong side of the bed, and dissolve them. But from experience, ladies and gentlemen, nothing is further from the truth. So once these state corporations have been created, they have equal status before the law. Of course, besides the State Corporations Act and their own individual enabling instruments, state corporations are also subject to the being that they are public entities, the Constitution of Kenya, Public Finance Management Act, Public Audit Act, Public Service Commission Act, Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2016, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act, Leadership and Integrity Act, and the various circulars and regulations issued from time to time by government, which I'm sure you've been informed about in earlier presentations. Now, in terms of the broad governance structure, as I say, state corporations are headed by yourselves. You are at the helm. You are literally at the helm. So the State Corporations Act 446 is very, very clear, and it provides for how the boards are constituted. Of course, I know that the various enabling instruments may have a variance from the State Corporations Act in terms of board composition, but the important thing is the principle that you as a board of directors are at the very helm. And the State Corporations Act says this board of directors has all the powers necessary, for you to enable that state corporation achieve its mandate. A very important statement. So you are at the helm of everything, you are the alpha and you are the omega. Now, in terms of the structure of the state the board as per the State Corporations Act, there is provision for membership of the National Treasury as the shareholder. I'm here to be told that the National Treasury is the only ministry that has been incorporated. And it has been incorporated for a specific purpose, as you will see. Mostly they exercise ownership on behalf of the public, so they must be legal persons. So the National Treasury is the shareholder and therefore has to be represented on every board. The parent ministry, in terms of the president has assigned each state corporation to a particular cabinet secretary for oversight. After the mysterious amendments of 2015 to the State Corporations Act, the Attorney General is now also an ex-officio member of every state corporation, and for purposes of mainly providing legal guidance. So this is very, very important, Chairman. I know in the drafting of the Water Act 2016, I think there was an oversight in that the membership of the National Treasury and the parent ministry was omitted. I think it was inadvertent, I believe so. And I think the act is under review. And I remember one time a water board referred to Madam IGC and asked, now that the National Treasury and the Ministry of Water are not members as per the Water Act 2016, should we still invite them? And of course, the response was very unequivocally, yes, you must invite them, as provided under the State Corporations Act. Now, the board is almost without exception, boards are non-executive. you cannot report to those state corporations daily to execute. So what you do is you constitute a management team to execute on your behalf. The management acts on delegated executive authority of the board. So you, as a board, and I think that's one of the points that Catherine was emphasizing, you will recruit actually the entire staff, let me say so. Effectively, you recruit the whole staff, right from the CEO to the shop floor. Although the recruitment of all those staff is your responsibility. But of course, I know due to the fact that you cannot micromanage, you may delegate some of your powers in respect of recruitment to the CEO. But ultimately, you remain responsible. The board, as I said, has the ultimate responsibility and accountability. If you have ultimate responsibility, hand in hand with that, you have ultimate accountability. And from time to time, you will be called upon to account to the National Assembly, usually through the Public Investments Committee. So I'll move on to the institutional framework under the State Corporations Act, beginning with the most powerful office, the presidency. So under the State Corporations Act, 446, the president has wide-ranging powers. He can, number one, establish a state corporation. He can also reorganize that state corporation. And he may, of course, subject to any applicable legal framework, also dissolve the state corporation. As I say, the president every so often assigns ministerial responsibility through presidential circular number 1. And I'm sure you are aware, each of the boards here is aware to which cabinet secretary you have been assigned for oversight. The president, as Catherine emphasized, also appoints mostly chairmen of state corporations. The president has also been given powers to give directions of a general or specific nature to a board. Yes, that means the president can direct a board. And the State Corporations Act is very clear that when the president does this, you have no choice but to implement a directive. Of course, that's why it's called a directive. It's very, very important to know that. I remember Madam IPC, I represented you on a certain board during the reign of President Kibaki. And the head of public service wrote directly to a board like yourselves. And when they received that directive, the chairman tabled the directive and the debate was open. They started by saying, look at our legal, they happen to have an enabling act. Under our act, there is nowhere stated that the president can direct us. So that was the debate. And in the end, they politely informed the head of public service that, sir, we received this directive, but no thanks, we cannot effect it because our legal instrument does not have provision of the same. So you can guess what happened after that. So what happened after that is the president exercised this other power, removal of a board or of a board member in consultation with SCAC and nomination. So a special gazette notice was issued to replace that board. So you must be aware that the president has wide-ranging powers. He can direct. Generally,
they are again banning queries or redirected to the platform. I will maybe allow one or two and this is precise because they are running out of time. Like I said, here.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. My name is Makoha. I sit in the Board of Communication Authority. I have only one question to Makoha. You've spoken about signing of minutes. I think the Inspector General has said. Give us your advice. How do we manage transition of board? A case in point whereby a new board comes on board and you are supposed to adopt minutes of the previous boards where none is present at that time. How do you ensure that one, it is a smooth transition, because it's expected that the business of the state organization should be able to proceed irrespective of the membership. We saw His Excellency the President holding a cabinet meeting without going cabinet. Is that supposed to be a tradition whereby we should be able to recall the previous board so that at least they can be able to sign the minutes for us to be able to adopt and for onward implementation? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Willie from Communications Authority. My actual shop has just given something. Mine is very short. Complaint we saw chairman of one of the parastatals being summoned by one of the committees in Parliament. When does this happen? And can recall Makoha saying that the CEO is supposed to appear. The other question I want to ask is how in case you want to interact with the junior staff so that you know exactly what happens, how do we mitigate that so that you're able to know exactly what that is where the road meets the tar, that's where the work is. And sometimes you find the management, there's a screen, you cannot be able to know what is happening, the problems, the lower card that is going through. Can we be able to interact with the junior staff? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam IEC. Albert from CAK on transition. Yeah, these are very common issue where and of course, Chairman, we've seen that sometimes, especially where the transition is sudden and anticipated, like the special gazette notice, where people did not anticipate that the term would be cut short, and they had pending minutes to confirm what happens with the incoming board. What we've of course said, because the minutes can only be confirmed in a formal meeting, and those people have been disappointed, so you cannot talk of those people coming back again to convene a session to confirm minutes. How would they even be paid? So it's not practical for them to come back. So what we normally do in that case is we advise that what management can do is, I think for the subsequent board, the minutes can be for information in terms of continuity, and any matters arising therefrom that have been actioned by the previous board may be tabled at the new board for adoption if that new board takes it. Of course, there is the issue of perpetual succession in terms of boards. There is supposed to be perpetual succession. So even though you individually are coming in as new directors, But if there are matters arising that have been actioned by the previous board, and from your judgment, from your reading of those matters, it is something that you can adopt and move along with, you may do so at your discretion. But of course, in these circumstances, in these special circumstances, the minutes will unfortunately have to remain unconfirmed for those special circumstances. Now, the issue from Paul, in terms of chairman being summoned by PIC or one of the committees of parliament, that is fit and proper. Because remember, you have the ultimate responsibility and as well the ultimate accountability. It is normally the procedure that the CEO is summoned to answer on your behalf. But if that committee feels strongly that the matters under consideration are of policy in nature, or something touching on maybe weaknesses in board oversight, they have a right to summon even the chairman. They have a right to summon even the chairman. There is no first rule that says that their summons should only be to the CEO. So in a number of instances, and we are very aware, we are friends of the PIC committee, in a number of instances, even an entire board is summoned to appear before the PIC and any other committee of parliament. Junior staff interaction. Of course, we normally say the CEO should be the one-stop shop for orderliness. That is on official matters. On official matters. Of course, this is not a military system that we are recommending. If you have been appointed as a director and you find that perhaps the finance manager comes from your home village, we are not saying that it is illegal to talk to them about the weather back in the village, for example. Yeah, you can talk to that friend about the weather back in the village and really how are the affairs going on generally. But on official matters, the advisory is on official matters. The CEO is one-stop shop. Yeah, you can the chit-chat, whatnot about but on official matters, the CEO is one-stop shop. And channel your requests through the CEO. I've also seen this common thing where, and the chair, maybe just closing, I was in a state corporation in the water sector, in community area. I used to represent the Inspector General here. And what happened is that the chairman went directly to the transport officer and said, I want a vehicle. He used to come from Taveta. And you know, you people are very powerful. You can imagine how intimidating it is. A man in a black suit, with a tie, a red tie, walking right into the transport officer's office and saying, I want a vehicle. Poor fellow, he had no choice but to sign out a vehicle without the knowledge of the CEO. Now, unfortunately, as things, the Murphy's law applies. In such situations, whatever can go wrong, goes wrong. Murphy's law takes over. So as they were driving down to Taita, the vehicle had an accident and became a write-off. So you can imagine, the CEO is unaware that a vehicle has been signed out to the chairman by the transport officer. It goes, gets an accident, and it's a write-off. So finally, the CEO rules that the transport officer has to be subject to recover the vehicle. Very, very tragic indeed. So you can see what sometimes these actions can. So always channel any official requests to the office of the CEO. But if you want to find out about general issues, the corporation or personal stories, yes, you can talk chit-chat with the employees. but on official matters, please limit this to the CEO. Official inquiries and official requests. Thank you very much.